If you're one of those people who wants passive income, listen up, because I've got some really bad news for you. There's no such thing. My name is Dr. Meghan Walker. I am a former naturopathic doctor and the chief cheerleader here at Clinician Business Labs. And we help clinic owners, clinicians, and wellness entrepreneurs build sustainable, impactful, and peaceful businesses. Now, I know some of you probably just pieced out when I said there's no such thing, but like most things and elements of leadership, this just requires that we have a little bit of nuance. When most people say that what they're looking for is passive income, I interpret that as what they're actually needing is a little bit of leverage. And usually the pain point they're feeling is they feel stuck in this model where they are trading time for money. The truth about passive income is that what we're really looking for is this idea of leverage, where the input of energy or time or effort that we put into our business is able to multiply on the other side. And while we've talked about this idea of time management, when we specifically start to look at leverage, it requires that we understand and perceive the world a little bit differently. So everyone says that they want leverage, but what they usually mean is that they want to be able to earn money while they are lying on a beach. And that's where we need to have a really honest conversation around some of these core pieces, because having access to leverage is not step one in this process. And if it feels like it's this elusive concept that you've never been able to access, it's probably because you're missing a tool. You likely don't have a leverage problem in your business. What you probably have is a sequencing problem in your business. The milestones that you're looking to reach are out of alignment. So let's walk through what leverage actually requires and why most clinicians never get there. So for us to really understand these pieces, I want you to know that there are 3 core stages or developmental milestones in a service-based business. Now, I know sometimes we like to believe that our clinical practice and our clinical model is vastly different than other business models out there, but the truth is, when it comes to the business side of things, there's some core tenets that we need to see. And one of the first milestones you must hit as a business before you can even have a conversation of leverage is you have to drive demand. And I speak to this really honestly, because I have clinicians who come to me having been in practice for 4, 5, 6, 15, 20 years. They're not actually yet that busy. They have big gaps in their practices, but they're really tired of working with people one-on-one. We need to solve the demand problem before we can step into a state of leverage. One of the easiest ways to do that, and we've covered this in other videos, is you need to shrink the available time that people can access you with. If you want to actually have strong demand, you can just simply start out by limiting the supply. So we need to make sure that we are first addressing the demand issue within your business. Trading your time for money is one of the biggest reasons people don't have demand. One of the first things we get people to do is build a system of care that's tied to distinct outcomes. Once we do that, we start to fill that pipeline, we start to fill demand. And once we fill demand, we have a new problem that we need to start to unlock. And that is we need to start to create systems. In the absence of systems, what happens is we get caught up in hustle culture. And hustle culture is something we're all allergic to over here at Clinician Business Labs. So we need to establish demand before we start to step into the arena, into the room where we're addressing leverage. And leverage, first and foremost, is going to require that we start to build systems. So you don't get leverage without demand, but many clinicians try to skip this step in order to get straight into this place of passive income. And the reason I don't like the word passive income is because there's nothing passive about actually getting there. In fact, there's very few business models where it is truly passive. Even if you owned a whole bunch of real estate and rent them out, let me tell you, that's a ton of work. So I really like to use the language leverage income because I think that it more accurately depicts what is taking place. So demand starts with calendar control, not necessarily more content, not necessarily more offerings. So this is why time management matters. If you don't control your calendar, you don't control demand. And without demand, there is nothing for you to leverage. Let's stop into a second piece here. And this is this idea that time has a price. If we're going to understand leverage, we also have to introduce this concept that time actually has a price. And this isn't just the time for money model. This is really truly understanding what your time is worth. Being able to talk about leverage means we have to understand the price and cost associated with time. So this is where things really start to sting a little bit. And we're going to do some very small mental math here. But the reality is everyone is already valuing their time. They just do it unconsciously. Usually it's a function of our programming that we get when we are a kid or early on in our career. And it gets solidified in places like school where we are endlessly rewarded for the effort that we put in. Here's what I want you to understand as we're moving into a new era of leadership and approach to your life and business. Saying yes to everything is a fear response. It's not coming from a place of generosity, and it's not coming from a nuanced understanding of what your value is that you bring to the table. If you don't know what your time is worth, you'll always be caught in this place where you are saying yes to things you don't want to be doing and putting your hand up to taking part in activities that don't necessarily move you forward. I use this example and this analogy all the time, that when we get stuck doing things in our business that are not a good use of our time, we're constantly playing defense. When you don't want to deploy money to hire someone to help clean your clinic or to take care of your bookkeeping or to sit at your front desk, what you're essentially doing is playing defense with your money all the time. And we can never win when we get caught in that place where we are going to choose to do everything ourselves. Getting out of that kind of play, getting out of that kind of football match where we all stand in front of the net instead of actually going out there to try to score a goal can be remedied with some emotional work or mindset pieces with respect to what your time is worth, but it can also be addressed with some really simple math. One of the things I want you to start to look at, what is your annual income? What are you bringing home? We can run the same line looking at what is your desired annual income divided by working weeks per year, divided by the number of hours that you are participating in. Compare that to what you are doing with your time. If your time is worth $100 an hour and you are busy doing $20 an hour work, you are sitting at a gross state of disparity. When you are approaching me and saying, Meghan, I never have time to start to be able to grow my business. I can never take it to the next level. I want to understand what's happening throughout the course of the day. Are you doing $200 an hour work, or are you stuck in $20 per hour tasks? Now, I could step back and show you all sorts of equations and all sorts of ways of being able to calculate your time, but I want to give you a resource written by one of my mentors and business coaches, and that is Dan Martell. And he wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time, and I recommend it endlessly to practitioners to start to truly understand what your time is worth and how to calculate when and how we hire people to not put us in a position where we are constantly standing in front of the net. You will never win the game when you are always playing defense with your time and with your resources. And we can never truly step into an understanding of opportunity cost and winning the game when we are forever stuck trying to be everything to everyone. Moving forward in understanding leverage means we need to understand the real cost. And there's a term for this in finance. It's called opportunity cost. And I want to put in brackets here that when we are doing all of the things ourselves, not only are we engaging in high degree opportunity cost within our business, it's also known as playing small. So opportunity cost isn't theoretical. It's happening every day. Every time you say yes to low value work is a no to leadership, to creativity, to working on your business, not in your business. And everyone goes through these stages. And in fact, you might think you've moved out of this stage and something will happen in your business or things will change and you're going to get thrown back into it. So there's a big difference between choosing to do it all the time and having to do it in a particular circumstance. So this isn't a character flaw. I want to be really clear. It's a transition point, and you'll go through it multiple times, but you need to catch it. You need to hold the line. If you refuse to move through it, leverage will always feel impossible. It is always going to be uncomfortable as you move to different phases of your business. You're always going to feel that money mindset pull. You're always going to feel like you're getting pulled back into this place of, oh, there isn't enough, or maybe I'm not going to have enough appointments to be able to invest to go to that next level. So I want to normalize this feeling, but I really want you to be able to come back to the opportunity cost of you standing in front of the net. So leverage really starts to fail when we get caught in this loop of being the time martyr, when we get caught in the loop of being the people pleaser. I'll do it myself is a control strategy. It's not more efficiency. Martyrdom kills systems. Perfectionism masquerades as a quality standard within your business. These are elements of growth and leadership that we are going to have to leave behind. Now, the challenge for this is that none of us were taught how to do these pieces in school. The challenge with this is that we were taught how to deploy care, but not necessarily run an HR department, not necessarily learn how to delegate effectively. This is one of the core things we spend our time in inside Clinician Business Labs. How do we start to develop your mindset as a leader? How do we hand off tasks so you are not stuck forever having to do them yourself? You can't justify keeping yourself in a role forever. We need to change the standard line and we need to reframe our leadership lens. So leverage is going to require that we are tolerating imperfect execution. 80% is probably good enough. It means that we're going to have to tolerate some of our schedule being dedicated to training somebody else, because we can't just hand them the SOP or standard operating procedure. We need to be able to swing back and inspect what we expect. And we need to be able to do it patiently and not at 7 a.m. or not after a long day working with clients. Part of moving into that next level means reserving time in your calendar to be able to truly lead. It means we're going to have to tolerate short-term discomfort. And it means we're going to have to turn back to resources that are plentiful in the realm of individuals such as Brené Brown, where we have tools and language to be able to have these types of discussions within our business. So when we get caught in martyrdom, it shuts down our creativity and it shuts down our growth. So you cannot forever do all the things yourself. You need to create time and space to be able to train new people on them, not just operationally within your business, but also as it pertains to the development of clinical care. One of the foundational pieces that we discuss when it comes to adding leverage in your business is moving away from trading your time for money and into a model where what we're selling is a system of care. When we design and create a system of care that leads people to an outcome, it means the system is something someone else can deploy. They could deploy it in a group context. They could deploy it online. They could deploy it as an associate in your practice. You can package it all up and create a business in a box. We have endless opportunities for leverage and scale when we start to create systems. So let's bring all of these pieces home. Let's start to pull all of these components together, because I want you to have a roadmap for leverage within your practice. Building out leverage is the core focus of what we do. Once someone has demand, which we help facilitate in a program called the Fill My Practice Accelerator, we move them into our next container, which is called Growth Lab. Growth Lab is where we take clinicians who are consistently producing $10,000 a month in revenue, and we move you up to that $1 million mark. Not because 7 figures is some kind of amazing, elusive online benchmark that we want to tell our friends about, but because once we hit a 7-figure business, we unlock new opportunities. We need to hit demand, we need to address leverage, and then we can start to look at what happens when we want to scale. So trading time for money is how we start, but it's not how we scale. Hustle culture is necessary as we start to drive towards demand. We're going to have to try different things. We're going to have to pivot hard. We're going to have to meet people for lunch. We're going to have to show up when we don't want to, but it is not a sustainable path to growth. And it persists because clinicians stay scared to invest. They stay scared to come out of the net. Systems aren't mechanical, they're philosophical. If every patient who comes into your practice is viewed as a special snowflake and only you can deliver their care, leverage, I'm sorry to say, is going to be off the table. Here's what you need to know. If that statement wants to make you turn this video off, if you're like, she's not for me, or, oh, my practice is different, or, oh, I deal with people in a special way, I want you to just sit in that state of discomfort. I want you to reframe how we're thinking about these pieces. Leverage is not saying no to one particular model. Leverage means saying no to this idea that you can be everything to everyone all the time. Leverage means stepping up and leaning into and standing along a new edge of leadership. Leverage requires that we say no to 90% of a client profile because we know we're really good with this group of 10. Leverage means designing for repeatability. Leverage means designing for repeatability because it leads to sustainability. Leverage is a leadership skill. Leverage is a reflection and something we unlock with professional maturity. And leverage is something that is attainable to all of us. It just requires that we think about our businesses a little bit differently. So here's the invitation for you. And I want you to really understand where the opportunity for leverage exists within your business. Below this video, we've created a tool for you that helps you understand where you have leverage blocks within your business. It shares with you some of the initial steps that you can take and some of the key projects that are going to be important for you to look at inside your business in order to unlock your potential for leverage and growth within your practice. It'll also include an invitation for you to look at one of our containers called Growth Lab. And one of the opportunities I want to give you, because you've stuck along with this conversation for so long, is not only the opportunity to see where you have a potential for leverage within your business, but for us to have a conversation about the next 3 strategic steps you need to take in order to unlock more time and financial freedom in your business. The one thing I take for granted is that everyone in our community is here for the right reasons. Everyone in our world is here because they want to have more impact on the patients and people that they serve while building a sustainable business in the process. If you are one of those people, if you want to know how you can have your cake and eat it too as it pertains to changing people's lives and building something incredible in your business, I'm going to invite you to not only complete that quiz below around how we can grow and unlock your practice, but I'm going to invite you to grab one of our 5 strategy calls that are available to you in the link below. I run those strategy calls, our senior coaches run those strategy calls, and what you'll leave with are 3 core pieces that you can implement in your business tomorrow in order to make the move towards a leverage state of practice. You got into this world because you wanted to change people's lives. And not only do I want to see you change your patients' lives, I want to see you change your life in the process. If you want something big and amazing and you want to do it with more ease and peace, I'm going to encourage you to grab one of those calls below and we'll see what we can do together.